NOLA. We don't use square on NOLA either, okay? So it's New Orleans or New Orleans, right? And it's almost like one word. The other thing is, if you think you sound like me, don't even try to fake being a local, because we're going to figure you out real quick, because you're going to make the mistake of correctly pronouncing something, and we're going to know you're not from here. Like we have a street we call Burgundy over there, but it's spelled Burgundy. And if I go to the bar, I'm going to say Burgundy wine, but that street name is Burgundy. So if you say I meet you on the corner of Burgundy and Conti, you're not from here. Conti. Right? Anyway, so we also have Calliope. And if there's an accident on Calliope, they'll say Calliope on the news, but it's spelled Calliope, but we just call it Calliope. Okay? We don't have medians in the city, we have neutral grounds. All right? So, that comes from the day that this was French, across Canal Street with the American sector. They didn't like each other, so people started referring to that median in Canal Street as the neutral ground between the two sides, what's stuck for the rest of the city. We don't have trolleys, we have streetcars here.
At this,
Gotcha. And by the way, that is the cheapest self-tour you can take yourself on, okay? For $1.25, you get on a Canal Street, the St. Charles line, you head upriver among all these oaks on that beautiful streetcar. You see all the mansions that the Port of New Orleans built over time, right? And you've got a couple of restaurants, a great Tex-Mex place, I think, Superior Grill along the way. You can get off, get back on. I would get off at my old alma mater, Tulane University, walk around in the park, and head back down. But so, they send two brothers, French Canadians, Iberville and Bienville from Canada, and they approach from the Gulf of Mexico side. They find the mouth of the river from the Gulf of Mexico. Now initially, they're just explorers, okay? They don't have the wherewithal, the knowledge to settle land, to clear land, okay, to build. They initially settle along the Gulf Coast of the United States. So cities like Mobile, Pensacola, Pascagoula, Ocean Springs, those were earlier settlements than New Orleans, okay? And there they meet their first group, and they're happy to meet them, Native Americans. Native Americans teach them about crawfish and oyster and yams and pecans and something we call filet, which I'll talk about in a little bit, okay? Well, the Native Americans actually have to take these guys in from time to time because they're starving. They have no clue about how to cultivate land or do anything along those lines. So in 1718, Bienville decides to settle New Orleans exactly where we are, inland on the river, okay? It's here, by the way, we're here because this was the only high ground in the area that didn't flood during high river stages, okay? This is the one area, so that's why we're here, okay? So, I just told you, they didn't have the wherewithal to clear land to build. They didn't have the manpower or knowledge. Initially, they go back to France and say, hey, France, send us some people to do this for us, right? Well, France is poor. So all France did was empty their prisons and empty their brothels, okay? And also send those people here. Matter of fact, the word was out that if you were unemployed for more than 3 days, you were likely to be scooped up and sent to Louisiana. That's how they tried to settle Louisiana with those type of people, right? Well, the Enville and his group weren't too happy with that, okay? So they said, this is not working out. We need some real help. So then the French sent African slaves from the Caribbean. Now that's our next group with their strong food tradition, one of which is okra, okay? That seafood gumbo you have in here has okra as a flavoring or thickening agent. That's how we use it, okay? And we know probably the first gumbo had okra in it, that African tradition, because the West African word for okra is gumbo with an O, and we just spell it with a U, okay? Our thinking though also is when okra was out of season, then what they used was filet. That filet they got from the Native Americans. Filet is dried sassafras leaves that are ground up and powdered, okay? And what I normally do, you do is at the end of the cooking, you put it in there to thicken it even more so, okay? So, you usually have an okra or filet gumbo, usually one or the other. You can have the standard, you don't have to add those thickening agents, but usually in New Orleans you can have either okra or filet, and you're usually going to have seafood or chicken and sausage, okay? All right? Now I'm saying usually. A lot of times, occasionally I'll tell you a certain dish, if I do a roux, that would be a Creole effort, okay? If I use butter in my roux, that's Creole. If I use a wine reduction or some sort of gravy or sauce, that's Creole. You got me? So, let me give you an example. I just told you because it has tomato pie, that jambalaya is Creole. And I grew up with that jambalaya. Mom used the same tomato paste in that as I. What we're gonna have is étouffée. Okay? So the word étouffée literally means smothered. Alright, when we smother it right. So the original étouffée is crawfish étouffée, and that's where you have it here. Okay? So, about 1920-ish. What?
Shrimp étouffée is like the second cousin.
Right. So, I'll talk about it in a minute. So, the standard étouffée now is crawfish étouffée. That was the original. So, Mrs. Amen, about 1920. Her and her two daughters ran the Abear Hotel in Breaux Bridge, Louisiana, on Bayou Tash. Doesn't get more easy than that, okay? And Mrs. Abear, she didn't do anything with the roux. She did this dish starting off with natural crawfish fat, and the thickening agent, right? And so the dish you're going to have here is based on that original recipe. So you're going to have the Cajun version here, okay? Now, she gave the recipe to a friend of hers who ran the Rendezvous Cafe, and his friend was in a big house because by 1950, étouffée spread out all over that area, right? And this is the same time that the oil and gas industry is getting a start along coastal Louisiana. So now all those oil workers get a taste of étouffée and they love it too, okay? So, when I was growing up, I had more shrimp étouffée than crawfish étouffée, okay? And you have a kitchen run by a certain chef, we pay attention to that. It's in the newspaper if your chef should leave your restaurant, okay? We pay attention to that. If you lose your chef, guess what? To us locals, you're starting all over again. You got to win us over again. And when somebody's brave enough to go to a restaurant that just lost their chef and has a new kitchen, we're on them when they come back. How was it? What's, like they were going to, they were reconnoitering the new restaurant. We want to know how's this dish? Ain't the same. Oh, we don't want to hear that, right? So we pay attention to the chef. We including when they're up for awards. Chef Nelson in that restaurant, he was up for Chef of the South. I haven't heard if the vote has been taken yet, but he was in the running for Chef of the South, so we're pretty excited by that. That is reservation only, although if you go late, they'll try to fit you in. It's pricey, but it's sort of relaxed, like business casual in there. You don't have to dressy, right? The food's excellent because not only the preparation, but the quality of the seafood that you go in the menu is done every day. So I think the Tuesday menu is up, right? So they're always doing the menu. It's not all seafood, but most of it is seafood. Okay, just to let you know. New Orleans, this would be the dish. And that's because no matter where you grew up in the city, whether you grew up uptown in those mansions, or you grew up in the lower ninth ward where my dad grew up, no matter what neighborhood you grew up, you ate red beans and eating red beans and rice. I was darn sure that everybody else in the city of New Orleans was eating red beans and rice at that time. That's because Monday was traditionally wash day. So my great-grandmother, my grandmother, they didn't wash and dry. They're on the back of the house, with the wash tub, with the washboard, rinsing, wringing, hanging on the clothesline, right? All that's very labor-intensive. Red beans and rice is a dish. All you do is get started on the stove, simmer, and you walk away from it. You don't have to stand over it. That was the beauty of red beans and rice. All you have to do is go back every once in a while, stir the pot to make sure no beans are sticking to the bottom. Other than that, you're leaving it alone. You're simmering over a long period of time. You're trying to entice those beans to give up their starch to make that gravy that you're going to have in this batch here. Okay. Another good reason why red beans and rice is on a Monday is because Sunday, especially in the South, was a family meal. And it usually incorporated ham. So if you had any leftover ham, you might throw that in the pot. But what you were looking for was that ham bone.
Right.
Because you cut that ham bone in half and you throw it in the pot, and all that marrow would melt out into your beans and make it even richer and creamy. Okay? So you're going for that too. Now I mentioned ham, and I will tell you, for you that don't like to eat meat, right? They actually put a sausage in the beans here. That's the Acme Oyster House I told you about. So they'll be open, I think, they'll be open Thursday, okay? They're known especially for their fried seafood, but also they have an oyster bar too that you can sit at, okay? You hear that's Dickie Brennan's. That's a good steak place, okay? Yes. But we're stopping here really because of the name, the Brennan name. That's like the first family of restaurant in the city of New Orleans. So I picked you up in front of a Brennan's. That's famous for its breakfast. Breakfast at Brennan is the phrase, right? You've got this. You've got, there's a Redfish Grill around the corner on Bourbon Street. Now, I would have pointed out if y'all heard me with the band. Right. That's a good place to go eat too. I like it. The atmosphere's nice. The food's good. Quite often they'll take walk-ins. You don't have to dress up. It's pretty consistent. I recommend it, okay? Probably the most famous Brennan restaurant is Commander's Palace on Washington Avenue in the Garden District, okay? French Creole always has been one of the top restaurants in the country. Some famous chefs came out of there. One is Paul Boudon. He was a big fat, he passed away about 20 years, a big fat chef. Right? He did his cooking show and he was always seated. He couldn't stand, he was so big, right? Very inventive Cajun Creole chef. Okay? He came up with black and redfish. He almost put redfish in extinction in the Gulf of Mexico. The feds had to shut things down. If anything black, he started that craze.
Get out, really?
And then what?
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Really? Out of this kid from Massachusetts comes down. He goes into the kitchen And he works his way up in the kitchen, Miss Ella's kitchen, Ella Brennan's kitchen, and his name is Emerald Lagasse. So he started in her, and he got he started out. All right, you guys are ready? Let's rock. You might be able to open these up. You notice these aren't doors to enter into this area, right? So that's how the house would originally be. And you would go behind the gate, and you see there's two doorways along that brick wall right there. And that's how you would enter your place, right? And of course, you see the courtyard all the way back. So this is typical. Once again, walking in the quarter, pay attention to that. Now, if you go there and have beignets and actually rent the Cafe de Mont, right? And if you say no, they're going to ask you why. But let me tell you, that's not my favorite beignet place, okay? Doesn't have my favorite beignets. When I was growing up, down Decatur Street, there was a place called Morning Call. Well, in the late 80s, early 80s, excuse me, they lost their lease. They had a lease issue. They moved out. If you go to take a cemetery tour, like at Greenwood Cemetery, that's a huge cemetery that you see by the interstate if you're going back to the airport, okay? They've got their place. I like their beignets better, right? Now, Morning Call, like Cafe de Mont, 24/7. When I was out the quarter as a teenager, right? Clubs, bars don't close, right? So we'd be going home.
Imagine Donald in the quarter as a teenager, right?
We'd be going like 5 o'clock in the morning, but we'd stop there first. They have a little beignets and coffee before we head on home. I thought everybody did that, didn't they? Right? Okay? That was, it's the normal thing to do, okay? So, all beignets, I would go Cafe Beignet that we passed on Bourbon Street. They've got a few of them around the town. I even like their beignets more so than Cafe de Mont. But I think if you walk past there and you see where it's not so crowded, I'd go say at least you went there and sat down and ate there, right? Okay, so pralines. Notice it's pralines, not pralines. Pecans, not pecans, right? That's how you pronounce it, okay? So the ones you see here, those are New Orleans concoctions. The original praline was an almond with a sugar coating. That was done up in France in the 1600s, well before New Orleans. Well, the French here wanted their pralines, right? But guess what? New Orleans. But they did have pecans, so they used pecans, some dairy, and some butter, and they made the pralines you can get here now. If you make your pralines here, that's the one dish you've got to be very careful of. You've got to follow exactly what the recipe tells you. Well, it's not burning, in time and temperature. Matter of fact, you're going to need a candy thermometer, because if you don't do it exactly the way they tell you, it's not going to turn out like you want, right? It's not going to turn out like you want. That's the one thing that's pretty tough, right? Among other things here as a dish. All right, so my favorite dish, breakfast, or I should say dessert. And then challenged the chef to come up with a new dessert. So he did. This is what he came up with. He called it Bananas Foster, after a friend of the owner, a local businessman, Mr. Foster. Okay? So you melt brown sugar in butter in a saute pan. You add cinnamon. You add some banana liqueur. That's their recipe. You can get it off the internet. Okay. Now you take a ripened banana. You peel it. You break up the banana lengthwise in little parts. And now you saute that, and when it's softened enough, you add dark rum to it, and now you light it. If you go to Brennan's, now it's not cheap. It's a 3-course breakfast, but it's not cheap. If you order Bananas Foster, They do this at your table in a cart or in a station nearby so you can see it being done. When enough alcohol is burned off, they cover it, kill the flame, and now they ladle that over premium vanilla ice cream in a bowl. It's awesome. Now let me tell you this. If you have a dinner party at your house and you finish off your dinner to the bananas foster, they will be talking about you and your dinner forever.